Well, obviously, with just three of us here, we can't vote on anything, but you guys took time out of your day to be here, so if other members are interested in your report, then they can check it out over video, and so the only thing we won't do is vote tonight. So since we don't have enough here, we can't call a meeting to order. So we'll skip the approval of the agenda because we don't have one, and we'll go directly to reports. And the first report tonight will be Mr. Hibden with the architect's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Report's pretty simple today. I mean, you got just a brief thing on the central project. It's going well, and just every time I bump into somebody that's even passed through Columbia, they all mention how well the building's looking, and I think Bell's doing an exceptional job and keeping things on track and on schedule. There's been more activity on the concession building, but I'm sure Jamie can give an update on that, any changes there. The only other thing I have on my report is the Spring Hill High School crack review, and basically we still haven't done anything further on that. So if I can answer any questions, but.
That bathroom issue at the new Central High School, have anything been settled on that yet, where they changed them to restrooms?
I have, my understanding, it's gone away. The restrooms will stay as they are presented. Now we're looking at changing the vent entry to save some money, and I think we're just about to a point of agreement. We'll have to revise some drawings for that, but currently I think the bathrooms are to remain as they have been designed.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You're up, Mr. Spencer.
Provide a little more detail on the construction update. Our rough-in work on the building is about 95% done. The primer, first coat of paintings are on. We're about 80% with the painting in the building. Framing, about 98% done with framing. Drywall and finishes, we're about 75% done. We're just really kind of rounding third and coming home, so to speak, on the interior. At least we're just getting that ball rolling where we're really getting a lot done on the inside. Phase one, of course, but area 1, area 2, area 3 of the building, just kind of moving down the line there. As I stated last time, we were close to getting the permanent electric into the building. We got that into the building. We were able to start the elevator after we got that, and actually the elevator should be complete at the end of this week. So when you go in there now, you'll see a fully functioning, almost fully functioning elevator in the building. Just to recap, the brick on the outside is 100% done. The roof work is 99.9% done. The windows in the building are probably 90% done. Got a few remaining window frames, just a scattered few here and there, and just a few little pieces of glass that aren't in. So we're really making some progress. We've even started talking about grading around the building, here coming up very shortly in the next few weeks. We're starting to put ceiling grid in the building, area 1 and at area 2. You're starting to see ceiling grid where tiles will pop in. So when you start seeing that kind of work, you're really getting towards the end. The HVAC should probably be turned on in the building on March 21st. That's a big date for us. Today's the 10th, so 11 days from now we'll have the HVAC on in the building. Pretty much just on schedule, working hard to get the building completed to hand over. The concession stand building update, talked to Steve this morning to get the final. Of course, Steve Hewlett has been carrying the ball on this and really has done an excellent job on getting the concession stand lined up to go. He's still got a few more donations that he's looking to bring in. He's gotten quite a few since he started. Not only have our subs jumped in at the opportunity to donate to this building, the ones that are already there on site, but we've had a really good response from local people, graduates of Central, people wanting to help. We've had local people donate roofing materials and plywood decking and trusses and gravel. We've really gone out and tried to bring this thing in at a really good and reasonable price. Can't tell you today standing here exactly what the building's going to cost because we still have the sewer issue to figure out, and we're just not quite there yet. Of course, as you may or may not know, we've moved from a septic system to tapping into the sewer. We weren't getting much help from TDEC on the septic system, so we've moved back to connecting to the building. So we just don't know how to quantify that quite yet, but I mean, this building's going to be sub $130,000 for sure. I mean, we're just already, we can tell you that with certainty. Will the building be ready for the tournament that we've talked about? It's going to be really, really, really tight, and it's really going to be based on how quick we can get that sewer tapped. And I think the building will be constructed. I think the building will be up by the time that tournament hits. I just don't know if we'll be connected to the wastewater then. We just don't know that yet. We're really tight on that particular thing. So,
Let me interrupt you just a minute.
Go ahead.
Just kind of add, I've been in the middle of this, not because I sit in this seat, but because I sit in the seat that pays my bills. But originally, we're having to look at an area in the park to use for the field line, because there's not enough virgin ground there on the site to do. So they were looking at coming on to Murray County Park, and actually, I think you guys already paid for some soil work that's done in the park, and an area was located. And then there became issues about, everybody thought that two Murray County entities could work things out, but then lawyers got involved, and it wasn't as easy for them to stomach as it was for us, just to make it simple. But then originally, you guys were told, and Mr. Breeden was told, that there was a moratorium on sewer taps in that zone of the city of Columbia. Well, after some calling around, to make a long story short, they are able to tap on the sewer. And so that's why Mr. Spencer's kind of in limbo as far as that sewage problem goes. And all that, they come down last Friday or Monday, somewhere in there, Mr. Breeden. So so there's some things there that, like I said, I was in the middle of, not because I'm a board member, but because of my job. And I know that Mr. Hewlett's he's put in a bunch of hours trying to get that solution figured out. But it sounds like that we're at a better solution for the long term of the building and the site now. So
yeah, everything you said I agree with completely, and it is a better solution at the end of the day. We're gonna have to tear up a little bit of parking lot, to get that line in at some point, and obviously that'll be occurring after Mule Day, because we know how integral that parking lot is there before that event. So, but I think this board will be very, very pleased at the ultimate number that concession stand comes in, largely because of the efforts of so many people that are contributing. So really happy to report that. With that said, that's the report on the newer building and the concession stand. And if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. I do see here, though, that we we've had to move the completion dates from June the 30th to July the 4th. I mean, are we behind or?
No, we've
what's
actually
this?
always, from our construction schedule, kind of been focusing on the 1st of July, and the 4th just happens to be, I believe it's a Monday, Mr. Breeden. And so we're just a few days, I think we'll have it really ready before that week, but just because July 4th fell on a Monday, that's kind of the date that we ended up. I wouldn't say that we're behind any means just because of those few days there. It just happens that the July 4th falls on a Monday. We really should be done before that. But as far as a date that we have to put down on paper, we went ahead and went with July 4th.
Okay, Mr. Breeding, is this gonna push your people and our plans as far as being able to occupy this phase 1 deal by school time?
We've talked to everyone about that. The big issue, of course, is getting the furniture in. We've talked to our furniture company about beginning delivery. They've assured us they can get it in and get it set up in the window that we need. And then when it's turned over us, most everything else can be done. The low voltage people will be in there hooking up all of the IT stuff, so that'll all be done when we move in. So it's really, and we're using, the furniture company does all the delivery and setup. So basically, they'll be in there for their time frame, and then it'll be turned over us to just basically go and occupy. And the teachers will be there, of course, the last week of July to begin moving their, setting up their classroom. So at this point, we do not anticipate a problem with that schedule if we can be in it, basically walk in July 5th morning, begin work.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have. Well, one other, I do agree. I would prefer if we can hook this concession building to the sewer system. I'm not a fan of continuing to use septic systems. And I would like for us to try our best to use sewer systems for our Maury County school buildings. So I do agree with that plan. Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Spencer, when we talk about that July 4th date, is there any way, and I'm just asking for information, but let's say that the furniture could be ready on June 15th. Is there any way to start a little bit of move-in before that date, just a few days, because we are on such a tight schedule, I think we're at the point where any day would help,
Yeah. Great question. One of the great benefits of this process, and I think Mr. Breeden and Dave would both agree with this, is that we do a lot of what we call field engineering, or decisions in the field as we go. One of the great things about Bell and our superintendent on site, Ken Jones, which a lot of y'all have met, if there's a way that we can stage the school system or turn a certain section over to the school system prior to that date, any time sooner, then we're going to do that. We've talked to them about that. It's absolutely something that we keep in the back of our mind, but we don't really put that on a schedule or announce it because it's just one of those kind of game time things that'll come down to the 12th hour. But certainly we'll work with the school system, and if there's a section or an area 1, say, which would probably be the first one to be completed, and we can turn over a certain amount of classrooms because they can get some furniture in, then we'll absolutely do that. In a lot of cases that happen, that maybe they have something they need to store. Remember, they got phase 2 coming up, and we got a lot of things we're coordinating to get out of a building that they have to put somewhere. So if there's going to be some empty rooms and some places that are cleaned up and painted and ready to go, and we can have the teachers and Roger can put those things in those rooms, then we're certainly going to do that. So you bring up a good point. Those are things that we talk about every 2 weeks in our meeting. And if that can happen, it certainly will.
And I'll just add, you brought up Ken Jones, and again, in the other seat I sit in, I know the people that put on Mule Day. I sat in on a meeting with them and Ken Jones, and I just want to compliment Ken Jones about how accommodating he has been. Him realizing that this is a large event and a really large event for a bunch of volunteers to put on as it is, and he's been very accommodating with them and very open to communication between those two, knowing that this is a multi-year relationship for both of them. And so I just want to you know, just bring that out, that he's been very good for them to work with and very accommodating. So I'm sure that they appreciate that.
It's good to hear.
I think that's all we got. All right, next on the agenda is the train report.
Thank you. Pretty much very similar to previous months. Everything is documented on the pack job with the couple additions that's happened since I've written the report, which would be the Murray County Maintenance Facility had been completed and signed off on, and the Withorn HVAC portion of the project was signed off. So it's complete. There is still some controls on the Withorn that's not signed off. So that's progressing well.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Stein? The only question I have, and this may or may not pertain to you, it may be more of a Mr. Breeden question, and I know I'm getting ahead of us. But I know next week we're going to talk about the facilities report, and I've peeked at a few of those reports, and it appears, a lot of it I don't understand, but it appears that there's a lot of HVAC issues. Is what Train is doing now and what they have done, do those two reports commingle with each other, or are they reciprocating, or?
They do actually. We gave the company who's doing the assessment the Train report, and they've included that. So a lot of the things they identified are exactly the same things Train did. The only difference would be Train based their recommendations almost entirely on condition, and the assessment is based on condition and life expectancy. So a lot of times they will identify things that are still working, but they've exceeded their life expectancy according to standards. And so there's some, you'll see they've recommended, you know, a larger replacement schedule in HVAC. Probably not right off the bat, but what they do is they, you know, show you, illustrate over the period. Is it 20 or 25 years, Dave? I don't remember. 25.
Depends on the equipment, but 25 they're going out.
That they're going out. They're going out 25. So they will show you equipment we've got that will, its life expectancy will, you know, will reach the end of its life expectancy through that whole period. But they use Train stuff for the immediate. So most of the immediate stuff they're recommending lines up with what Train had told us. If you remember, originally that was about $17 million. And of course, we've been able to do part of that, but not near all that was originally recommended by Train.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cullioca, what about, I know last meeting we talked about a filtering system for trying to continue to improve.
Filter's been installed, say roughly a week, maybe slightly over a week, and it's operational. I believe the maintenance department is cleaning the filters on it, so you may be able to speak better to that.
Well, we have, our maintenance department is cleaning those filters. We did get word from the company that's got this filter system out there that they are a sock type of filter, so they're reusable. So we're probably supposed to be changing those either today or tomorrow. I haven't gotten a picture. I'm requesting a picture before they change them and clean them to see where we are and then how we progress. So,
Whether to clean them on a weekly schedule or what do we do?
well, we're going to probably be changing them more, checking them more on a twice a week, just to see how it's going. Hopefully, as time goes on, we'll be changing from a larger micron size filter to a smaller micron, so we'll get more of the fines and clean it up at a better performance.
So we're still trying to improve the efficiency of the system and to salvage the existing system with this filtering process.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, it's filtering out media that's contained within the water source pipe. And that media that we're trying to get out is actually what's clogging a lot of the heat exchangers and causing a lot of the issues with the water source heat pumps.
Okay. And then Hampshire, we're still with our plan to try and put Freon back in that we'd salvaged and,
Well, we brought in Mr. Owen Nevada to kind of answer any specific questions. I think he has a few options from, yes, we can put Freon back in would be your lowest cost on up to a little bigger, more in-depth plan. If you would like to hear from him, I'm sure he'd be willing to speak to y'all.
I'll leave it up to.
Yeah, but I got one question about Culleoka before we get totally away from that. I read in the report and that maybe you guys were suggesting maybe an even more aggressive form of or a way to get that gunk, I don't know the word, out of there. Did I read some type of steam flushing, or it wasn't steam, but there's something. Anyway, I'll just shut up because I don't know what I'm talking about. But
I don't know about a steam flushing.
I'm not sure either.
No, I don't know about a steam flushing, but so what we've done at this point is we've installed a powered side stream filtration system that runs 24 hours a day, scrubbing that loop. The attempts to clean that loop online, if you will, were not aggressive enough. And to John's point, we need to go on and get that stuff out of there to where we quit having plugged up heat exchangers, et cetera. So what's happened is we've hired a company that specializes in this. We've installed their side stream filtration unit with the help of Murray County schools maintenance folks. And it's estimated to take 3 to 6 months to clean the loop up completely. It will be a staged approach where right now we're using a fairly coarse mesh filtration element. We will reduce the micron size down as we go, and at some point they're going to start to administer dispersants and detergents into the loop to help loosen the stuff up so that we can capture it. I will tell you from personal experience, we know this will clean the loop up, and it's the only way really to get the loop cleaned while we keep the school online.
yeah, I'm sorry. Stream looks like steam
There you go.
when you're trying to read through things fast. So that, yeah, I went back and looked. But anybody, you got something else?
Yes. You say 3 to 6 months. Of course, we're getting close to our summer break, and I know we've learned not to completely cut the systems off, but will we need to make any additional changes as far as keeping some of this equipment running during the summer to keep continuing this cleaning process? And
Should not need to. The filtration system is powered on its own. It's a separate unit on a skid that's been piped in and has its own pumps and everything. And so, over the summer, Culleoka is automated, and so it will go into setback or summer schedules, and there's no reason to, run it any more than that.
okay. That's all I have.
I seen your report next was Hampshire, so if anybody has any more, nobody has anything else about Culleoka, then
Okay.
I'll let you jump into that.
So Mr. Breeden had asked me to come and basically answer questions and clarify the situation in Hampshire. So as you all remember, I think it was around October last year, we went ahead and put a compressor in that chiller to reestablish cooling. But also the leaks in that chiller system are such that for the winter, we took the gas out, and Murray County Schools has stored that gas and pressurized the machine with nitrogen. And the reason is that this chiller system, it's not like a packaged air-cooled chiller like in a box. There's two primary pieces. There's the piece in the mechanical room, which consists of the compressor and the evaporator, and then there's the piece on the roof, which is what's called a remote air-cooled condenser. And the best way to kind of picture that is the air conditioner in most of your houses where you have an inside piece and an outside piece. This chiller is kind of like that. Well, the piece on the roof, the air-cooled condenser, is what is leaking. And it's leaking within the coil of the condenser. And it's leaking to the point where, you know, in all honesty, to put refrigerant back in it would be not really in compliance with EPA regulations. What EPA would say is if you're going to put refrigerant back in the machine, you need to have a plan to address those leaks within a 12-month period. So from our standpoint, there's really like three options that you know, all we can do is give you the data, give you what we see as the options, and then whatever the board's will is what you would do. You can replace just the leaking air-cooled condenser portion that's on the roof. That's got a cost of about $75,000. You can replace the entire chiller system with a new packaged chiller system that would sit just outside of the mechanical room. We would end up pouring a concrete slab, setting the chiller, running the piping outside, running the electrical out. That's got a cost of around $120,000. Both of those options basically give you a new chiller feeding into an old two-pipe system that was part of the original school. And so you would be reinvigorating a chilled water system, a two-pipe system, you know, it's got a boiler on it as well, that covers the front part or the old portion of the school. You still have, you know, this old two-pipe loop and all of the fan coils and appurtenances that are associated with that loop. So the way I look at it is, you know, if you wanted to get another couple years out of that system, I'd probably just replace the air-cooled condenser up on the roof and call it wonderful. If you're looking at doing any kind of wholesale renovation in the school, and part of why I'm here is because especially if you had visions of doing it this summer, we're out of time. You all would have to make some very expedient decisions in order to get engineering going, because that's like $1 million project. To basically abandon that two-pipe system and remove all that and go in with standalone rooftop package units for the various rooms. We also included the air conditioning, the gym, and part of that split was there was controls included in that for the whole school, but the HVAC portion was just for the there was controls included for the whole school, but the HVAC portion was just for the old part of the school on the two-pipe system, about 40% of the school. And, you know, we're not advocating one way or the other. Our whole thing is, okay, so what are your options? And that's really something that the schools need to make a decision on.
I want to jump in here, if I can, Mr. Nevada, and just, I know you all have thought about this, but obviously the problems we're talking about at Culleoka, the problems we had at Whitthorne where we replaced the system, they're all from failure to take good care of the piping system. Well, this system has the same components of that. So there is some difference between it and Culleoka, which is far more technical than I can explain it to it, but because it's a two-pipe system, those fan coil units are not hardly as finicky as the water source heat pumps at Culleoka. So when the loop gets stopped up, you don't have you just basically lose heat. You don't have the errors and things blowing up and that kind of stuff. You just lose the heat or cool in the classroom. But I think that contributes to the reason that this is the building's in excess of what is it? Is it 50? No, it's probably in the 50s, 50-year-old building. So again, it's exceeded the life expectancy of that piping system, especially compounded by the fact that we probably haven't done a good job of taking care of it by properly treating the water in it. So, which impacts not only the pipes, but also the coils in the unit and all those kind of things that get corroded and stopped up and all the problems you have from that.
We've almost turned Mr. Breeding into an HVAC engineer. That was pretty good. Incidentally, there is one other thing. There's kind of no easy way to explain this. So the system that's there, this two-pipe system, it's a 50-ton two-pipe system. Today, an engineer would not design a system to be a wet-based system at that size. It's just too small and too costly and too maintenance and labor intensive. So that's why I would say to you all is that, you know, if you wanted to get a couple years out of the facility, yeah, let's just do the most cost-effective thing and put a new air-cooled condenser up on the roof and call it wonderful and you know, and just do what you have to do. But for a long-term solution, you would want to eliminate that two-pipe system and go back with rooftop package units per area, classroom, office, et cetera.
Mr. Dudley?
You may have just answered it, so you think if we go this $75,000 route and just do the unit on the roof, that we could possibly get 2 years?
I think so. I mean, I don't have any reason to say no. The boilers are in relatively good shape.
I think we've actually replaced the boiler. It is not the original boiler.
Right.
We've replaced the boiler. So several years ago, it's got some age on it, but it is not the original boiler in the school. I can't speak, though, to the exact condition. There may be some of those units that aren't working in those classrooms, but I don't know that for sure.
I think here, this would be the phrase is that we can't say that you won't have some issues that you have to go fix, you know, but I think you could get a couple years out of it, yeah.
So if we do the top, the unit on the roof, and then the unit inside goes out, so that's another 75,000, is that?
Well, you have to realize that we replaced the compressor on that unit inside, and so, I mean, short of the evaporator barrel busting or freezing up or something, you really should be okay. You know, I mean, you know, stuff breaks, but but, you know, if you wanted to be for sure, you'd put an air-cooled chiller outside a package unit, but that's like $120,000 to do that. And here's the thing, though, this is what you want to keep in mind. So, okay, so if you put an air-cooled chiller out there, yeah, that would mitigate risk over the next couple of years associated with the chiller, but that doesn't do anything for you for the loop and the fan coils or air handlers or anything that's connected to it. So there again, you know, if it were me and my money, I would be looking at what my end goal was. What was I trying to get from a life expectancy standpoint?
But 2 years would possibly give us time to get our maintenance program and work it all in with our total program for the whole system.
Yeah, keep in mind though, you know, somewhere let's say that we get the chiller that's there, let's say that we replace the condenser and get the chiller tight and up and running and everything. What you want to understand is you're basically postponing spending, you know, somewhere between $800 and $1 million, depending on the exact scope that you have to face if you want a long-term solution for that school. You would not want to try to rehab that two-pipe system for a long-term solution.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me, so if I'm hearing you right, to do it right, it'd be 800 to $1 million.
Yeah, so when we did the investment grade audit and the engineering, and I may have to walk over here to see the exact numbers, there's a split where try to do that and summer, issue us a letter of authorization to proceed with engineering. We'll work from the GMP, and we'll go relook at the engineering, relook at the estimating. If we can come up with a way to bring it in less, we'll bring it in less. If it ends up being more, we'll stick to the GMP. But essentially, you know, in 2014, we were $849,793. That was a contract rate price on the HVAC portion. And $161,000 for the controls for the whole school, just like Colioto, et cetera. The primary thing is that if you all had expectations of trying to do this work this summer, it's like, man, we better do something quick because we're gonna run out of time. We're pretty much out of time.
Mr. Dudley?
Mr. Breeden, since we don't have, not going to be able to vote this evening, what's our plans? We're just going to move this stuff to the full board in 2 weeks without committee recommendations, or what's our plan?
Obviously, we have several things on here that we were hoping to move forward. There's a couple things we want even to do over spring break. So we would like to do that. I guess I'll lean on your experience, Mr. Dudley, having served on this committee for a long time. Has that ever happened before, or could we do that?
Yeah, there's been instances where we didn't have enough committee members to effectively have a committee meeting, and so things were just moved to the full board. Since the full board is technically the members of, all of us are committees members of this committee. So I certainly don't have any problem with just the full board making the decision about this stuff in 2 weeks without a committee recommendation.
That was going to be my suggestion. I was actually going to ask that, I'm speaking just for me, that, because I can't remember all what he just said, but that if you could have the $75,000 option ready, and I'll ask that as an individual board member to be placed on there, and then you can have the other options if somebody wants to hear, and we'll just, I'll ask to have it on the agenda without any action from the board, so, I mean, from the committee. So to me, the only difference in that is it'll require a motion and a second to hit the floor. So I think that we can still accomplish what we wanted to get a decision in 2 weeks. We're just going about it a little different way. You agree with that, Mr. Dudley?
Yes, sir.
The only question I have, and if in 2 weeks we say, let's go with a $75,000 option, how quick can you guys make that happen?
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to just bring to your attention. So the 75 or the $120,000 option, there's no like time compression on that. So, you know, obviously the right time to do that work would be over the summer break. And so like if you all made that decision in March and you know, like by the end of March, you gave us a go-ahead, we could easily get the components here and schedule that over the summer break. The thing that has time compression to it would be as if you wanted to try to accomplish a full renovation of the school over this coming summer break. That's where the time compression is. So I mean, you know, right now at Mr. Breeden and Mr. Hall's say so, you know, they can reestablish cooling in the building, you know, within a day or two. So you know, there's no risk there, and you know, we can certainly order a condenser or order a chiller. They run about 6-7 week lead time, so we could easily have that in town, and you know, as soon as school's out, schedule that replacement.
And I'm saying this because I'm stupid. So, but there wouldn't be any way to do it during the school year.
Yeah, we could do the air-cooled condenser during the school year. And, you know, for that matter, we could probably orchestrate a chiller installation over a long weekend.
And the only reason I bring it up, I know there's been questions about when we gas this thing back up and fire it up, everybody's gonna be sitting around with their fingers crossed that,
Nah. It's got a new compressor in it. The thing that you're faced with is we're gonna gas it back up, it's gonna leak, okay? But it's not like it's gonna gush. It's gonna leak, it'll run, it ran in October and cooled fine, and you know, I think the conversation you may be thinking about is the one we were talking about back in October, is that we tried to pull the compressor apart and look at it to see if we could fix the existing compressor. And that's where everybody kind of had their fingers crossed. And when we pulled it apart, we found metal in the oil and everything, and we just said, no, we need to go on and put a compressor on it. So, I mean, it should fire up and go.
and I just mentioned that because I would just feel better about it. If it's a 2 or 3 day job, something like that, that I'd feel better. Personally, I wouldn't see any sense in waiting to summer break if it was just a couple day job.
You're right. Here's the only thing is you're going to need cooling before we could get a condenser in town. You know, you're going to need cooling here in the next couple weeks, I'm imagining.
Well, we already have a lot of folks wanting it now. We've turned boilers off, but we're not firing those chillers up yet because once we do that, we're set for the summer, and we all know it's probably going to get cold again. So, but typically, we're doing that when we come off of spring break, which like y'all know is about 3 or 4 weeks.
Mr. Dillon?
Ms. Breeden, this is always our big animal that we have to overcome, funding. Now, I know we don't have funds for the 800,000 for the full renovation, but if we stay between the 70,000, 75,000 and the 100, and you said the new chiller, if we went that route, is 150,000, is that right?
It's like 120,000.
120, so if we stay on our lower range of options, do we have enough funds to pull this off?
Obviously, you just took part of our excess funds for the concession stand, or part of our funds that haven't been committed yet for the concession stand. Those are supposed to be replaced. I left the commission. They hadn't voted on that budget amendment yet, but I'm sure they'll pass it. Not sure we're getting anywhere on some of the other things, but it's a whole nother subject, excuse me. But if that's replenished, you know, we might have to defer some of these other things that you see in here to make that happen, but there would be funding to do that if we deferred some of the other things that are on the list but haven't been, like the couple of foundation stabilization projects that we've not undertaken even. Those are $90,000 combined. So we could use that money instead.
Well, and later on this evening, we've got the transforming the weight room into to a dance studio. I mean, I certainly put having cooling over a dance studio rail. I mean, I want them to be able to get the programs they want, but
Yes, sir.
so we would have some money there. I think we were looking at $50,000 there.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, and I apologize because being late coming from the commission meeting, but we have actually been told over the last, just this week, and I didn't have time before we put it in the packet, that there's possibly private funding available for that. So I was going to ask y'all to postpone that because we've actually made a request for private funding for that to a board. So hopefully that'll get funded and take that off the list. So.
All right, well, thank you.
I would like to see the first 2 options put on the agenda for next week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks from now, when we have the meeting. The first 2 options, I would love to see the third option done, but obviously, we don't have time or the money to do that right now. So the first 2 options, I would love to see on the agenda.
All right, looks like that's all. Thanks for your report. Next, on the list, project cost report, is there anything you want to highlight about that, Mr. Breeden? Or?
No, there's not much that has changed because, as you know, I mean, we've got a couple of projects we want to talk to you about tonight, but most of these we've kind of been waiting because while we had set them as a priority with this assessment that's going to be presented next week, we kind of thought you might want to look at all of this as a group, and so we've kind of delayed. So there's really not much to update you on the report from last time.
Only thing, I know you guys been putting that on there. I mean, the capital improvement report is what I'm talking about. I'm jumping ahead, but I guess after next Thursday, you won't have to do that anymore. So this audit will take the place of that, I'm assuming.
Yes, it will. We're actually, that would be our plan is neither the capital renovation repair or even the athletic projects. We actually have been meeting with our new countywide athletic director to look at that too. So, we hope to bring you back from the assessment. Of course, everything on there is not based on conditions. Some of that's based on we don't have this and we'd like to have, especially in the athletics area. And they didn't speak to that as much because they didn't examine programs, they examined conditions. But we're talking about redoing the entire list and coming back to you with a different prioritized list after the assessment. So yeah, this meeting's the last time. The prioritized capital renovations and repairs and the capital improvement projects would be presented in their current form.
And that leads us into the next topic. I'm assuming that the facilities assessment presentation, that's just a FYI that's coming up next week.
Yes, sir, that is an FYI. And so what I wanted to tell you is because those two, that is devoted to next Thursday night, 5 o'clock. There'll be a work session for the board. The commission is also invited to attend. We have put on your SharePoint all of the facility condition assessment reports for all 22 facilities that were examined. That was 20 schools, not Central High School, but the other 20 schools, the central office, and the maintenance department, because that's the facilities that we own and have to keep up. Those reports are all out there for you to examine on the SharePoint site. Each report is anywhere from 60 to 85 pages long. There is a condensed summary of just the cost. It combines them all into one report. There's an executive summary that goes along with that and a prioritization that they made that we're going to attach to an agenda and post tomorrow. So that will be available as a notice to the public. We've also been requested to give a link to those reports to the public, and so we'll do that as well. But we thought it might be easier to read to just have the executive summary, the summary of the projected costs without having to go through each one of those reports, and that will all be posted tomorrow. So we will have that. But because of that, and not knowing the length of that meeting, I felt like it was important for us to bring you not only our report on the condition of our facilities and all the deferred maintenance issues that have to be dealt with, along with the plans for capital maintenance for the future, because that's what this report will deal with. But also, we've talked to you about making a plan to better maintain our facilities in the future. Again, all of the problems that you will see is not, the deferred maintenance issues are not all because of improper maintenance techniques. Some of it's because of things weren't funded to be replaced when they were due to be replaced. But we will admit to you that we can improve in the area of how we maintain our facilities. And again, I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about the reasons for that. But one of the opportunities we had and what we wanted to share with you tonight, and I'm really disappointed. I understand the sickness and things that has hit our board. Really disappointed that everyone's not here to hear this because I've asked Byron Hedrick with Lean Frog to come and share with you. Lean Frog, is the company that Dr. Marzak had recommended to come in and do an assessment of several parts of our school district, really to look at opportunities that we have. One of the things that we had not contracted with them for is to look at our facilities. But while he was there, Byron and I got to talking, and he agreed to do a preliminary assessment for free. So what he's doing tonight is for free. So that's why I really appreciate him being here. And he's gone through and done the preliminary assessment is much more extensive than I expected. Included a district-wide survey, which he's going to speak to, and several things he's looked at. So Byron Hedrick is here tonight and to make this, and he's agreed to present it and answer questions. So Byron, thank you very much for being here.
Mr. Breeden, just don't let me forget, when he's finished, I want to go back to something, just a question on the assessment, but we can catch that after.
Thanks. This is about 30 slides, so I'm going to try to be mindful of your time and be very concise and move through some of it quickly. If I move through too quickly, please feel free to rein me in and pull me back, and I'll be happy to pause and go in deeper detail with any other slides. The Lean Opportunity Readiness Assessment, this is a approach that our company developed 4 years ago. Its primarily focus is in non-instructional areas, and we use this tool across facilities. We also do nutrition, finance, just about any non-instructional area. Its focus is to determine where there is potential opportunities. Because it is brief, I only got to spend a few hours with Mr. Breeden going over this, and I took a data pool, a sample set of data. Keep that in mind. I'm not able to pinpoint exact things. It's more a look at, hey, here's some opportunities you guys need to go look at harder and deeper to solve. That's a little bit about our company. I'll fly through that piece. You guys can consider that later. Again, the way this report works is we pull data based on the type of department, such as we pulled extensive work order data to the point that I actually had Mr. Breeden give me access to your school dude so I could pull all the reports I wanted to on your work orders out. We did a customer service survey for both maintenance services and custodial services across the district so we can see what your teachers and what your staff, what they see, how they feel about the services they're receiving from maintenance and custodian. We also did comparative analysis, both at a national level and then with some Tennessee peer districts. Now, the peer districts that I use are districts that we're intimate with, that we have worked with through assessment processes, so I sort of know the systems they use to drive their results. Versus it just being a number on a sheet of paper that I'm comparing it to. There were some overarching opportunities, and these probably go beyond just the facilities department. The first of which is there's really a lack of standardized processes, and you look at the attrition level, the retirement age of your staff, you're going to potentially lose some talent. And you need to be able to have some systems in place so that as you lose people, you're not losing that special knowledge. Knowledge transfer occurs. Because we have a lack of standardized work in the system in relationship to maintenance and custodial activities, you're in danger of having this sawtooth effect occur. And I'm sure some of you have seen this in your careers where someone comes in, they do a great job, things get great, and then something happens, they leave, they lose focus, and the next person comes in, the service level drops, and he has to relearn and do the same thing. You're in danger of seeing some of that occur because of lack of standardized procedures within the department. One thing that Mr. Bearden's working on, and I think he's doing a good job with, but I wanted to lay it out, is you also aren't really right now measuring internally your efficiencies or your effectiveness and your cost in such a way that allows you to make good management decisions on an ongoing basis. You're having to take snapshots of data versus seeing live data and knowing on a month-to-month basis how you're performing. We would recommend establishing some key performance indicators and setting that up in a scorecard fashion. And I know actually during the assessment, Mr. Bearden produced a draft of a scorecard for our review. So he's already on top of getting this one moving for you guys. And then lastly, once you have standardized procedures and you have measurement of how those procedures are functioning, you could tie them into a management system where you're reviewing that performance and making adjustments to your procedures to drive continuous improvement. And that's something, again, Mr. Bearden's already on top of getting fixed for you. When we got into the maintenance services, we surveyed, again, your whole staff. We had over 600 people respond. So this isn't a survey based off of 30 people or 45 people. That was a significant number of people responding to the survey. If you look up there on your survey, you'll notice that when it comes down to comparing you to other peer districts where we ran the survey, there was 2 factors I added to the survey based off of the conversations with Mr. Bearden before I ran the survey that aren't comparable. I don't have peers on those 2 pieces, which were accuracy of communication and timeliness of communication. There appears to be some gaps there in people. 56% of the people were satisfied, but almost 50% weren't satisfied with the communication. The work order system, again, 52% were satisfied with what's going on with the work order system. In general, that's usually around in the 80% range for systems using school dudes similar to the tools that you have. When we look at response time, 62% versus, again, peer districts being around 83%. When you look at overall the professionalism of the staff, though, that's right there. That's right where it should be. So it's not that people are believing that your people don't have the abilities to do the work. It's more of a work systems issue that this is pointing out to us to maintain the service levels, not necessarily the quality of the staff. When we started looking at the actual response time, we kind of wanted to dig into that one a little bit. We did it by school. What we saw was there's a high level of diversity between your schools and how they feel they're being serviced. Some of your schools were as low as only 29 to 35% satisfied. Others were as high as 72. That diversity across your schools, that's not really good. Some of you, depending on which piece of the district, the school system district you're in, your schools may not be receiving the same service as other ones. So in maintenance, we strive to have that response time consistent so that everyone's getting fair and equal treatment across the system. Their perception as customers is that there's some gaps and high variance between how they're being serviced based off of their customer survey results. That's their voice, not someone else's. When we looked at monthly work order throughput, now, one thing we need to note was that in July of 2015, some changes were made into school duty, and they needed to be made. It was the right thing to do, but that kind of threw the data off behind July, so I couldn't really look at that data. I had to start in August and move forward. There were a high number of work orders entered in August, and that could have been driven by the kind of the cleanup that had to take place in July. But what you're seeing there, when you look at the number of work orders coming in and the number of ones closed, your variance is high initially, but overall you're tracking pretty good until back out here in January. And typically we do see spike points when students come back from, say, Christmas break, a holiday break, when those units and everything kick back on all of a sudden, we usually see some spikes. We'll see some spikes at the first of the school year, too, when students return to the class for the first time. But overall, you seem consistent in your work order throughput. When we looked at how the work orders were being distributed by location, we saw that basically in this time frame, your schools were hitting around 127 was your peak, and then all the way down to only 35. And we had about a little over 1,700 work orders completed during this time frame. When we looked at it on an average monthly work order basis, that's, and you can see the mean there is around 14. you're averaging about 14 work orders per school, and then some of your schools only have 9, 8, or 6. Now, this may not be because the schools are in great shape. This could be being driven that the staff members aren't submitting the work that isn't required and needed. And if they're not feeling that they're being serviced, you could see that diminish. They could be holding back on submitting those work orders. An interesting thing is when we look at the work orders by craft, you'll notice that it's heating and ventilation. I think tonight what I've heard is you're well aware that that's your issue here. You have significant, sounds like deferred maintenance opportunities in HVAC, and that's driving up the work in relationship to that. Plumbing would be second, lighting is third. Interesting thing though, you guys have 49 crafts set up in School Dude. That's an issue because it's going to interfere with your ability to automate some of your work order processes later. Typically, schools have somewhere using School Dude, just like you. Typically, you see about 20 crafts set up. When you get into the high numbers, over 20, it gets harder for you to understand exactly where the work should be sent. And we're actually getting so much in the weeds, it makes it more difficult to manage the work versus being able to have it, the system set up in such a way that we could actually automate and move work to maintenance men without having to print things on paper or having them to be reviewed and having them to be noted by a third party. That's going to prevent you from being able to take care of some of the full efficiencies in the system, the number of crafts you have set up. And I'm sorry, I miss, the interesting thing is, although you have the 49 crafts, you had the 1,700 work orders. 1,100 of those work orders were in just these that are shown right here. So you're really not even using those 49 crafts. So we need to go in and we need to clean up the School Dude system a little more. When we looked at your staffing, you were about a man below the national average. And you're averaging about 4 hours, 4.25 hours per work order. I have that green, but the issue we're going to see later with the deferred maintenance levels that you have right now, your staffing may not be, even though you're down about a person below the average, you may actually see that you may be as high as 2 short from being able to accomplish the things you need to for the system. When we look at your cost, your cost is below the national mean, and I could say that typically we would make cost green, except we didn't see the customer service levels high enough. If your customer service levels were very high and you were hitting good cost numbers, that would be a sign that you had very good systems in place. And it was being managed in such a way to drive that performance level. This looks more as if we're deferring spending money and we're not really staffed appropriately to maintain, and that's the sign of the customer service survey results. When I compared you to other Tennessee school systems, what we saw there is that you had the lowest cost per square foot. Again, if we had seen very strong customer service survey results, that could be a good thing. But with those weak customer service survey results, and then comparing you to your peers, your spending may be below what you need to be spending for maintenance to maintain the buildings. The other thing is you had the second highest workload per staff across our peers in Tennessee. You were at 111,000 square foot and some change. A lot of your districts in Tennessee are running around 94 on average. So you guys have a lot more square foot per maintenance man than most of your other districts. So when you look at a combination of your maintenance men, the workload is higher, your customer service results are kind of poor, and your cost is way down, the program's imbalanced. That's what these signs. And again, this is a quick snapshot. We just took data, we did interviews. That's as far as we can go for a few hours of the work. But this snapshot is showing some opportunities where there's the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, where your program needs to be revamped a little bit. Now, based off of getting into how work is done in the interview and looking at how work orders are assigned, how work is communicated, and how the current system is set up, there's a few things that we would recommend looking at. First off, we would recommend cleaning up school dude, reducing the number of trades that are in the work order system. You have some school custodial staff right now that you guys are paying for. You've contracted the majority of your custodial staff, but there's some positions that are Maury County employees. Instead of using that staff just in a position of being custodians, you could switch that role to more of a building engineer function where they're able to vet work orders before they're placed so that when a maintenance man receives a work order, it's accurate. Right now, you're seeing some redundancies where we're thinking it's a roof leak, it's actually a pipe. So the person who shows up is not prepared to do the work, and it causes us to make multiple trips and so forth. So there could be some efficiency gain by moving to a building engineer model. And in order to do that, though, the reporting structure would have to move from those types to have them come to report to operations so that they could be trained and really set up as the first line of defense. The other thing that we could do with that piece is some of the preventative maintenance functions that aren't getting done could be rolled into that role. And these would be not technical trade type functions. And also it could be minor maintenance items, the kind of the cholesterol, from changing out ceiling tiles to changing batteries, changing light bulbs. Some districts even go as far as to train that position to do ballast so that their tradesmen aren't pulled for that activity. The other thing, because of the response time issues, and right now your maintenance men are working all over as needed. They go wherever there's a need. It would be better to probably go to more of a zone approach to maintenance, to having teams that are over zones so that they can respond faster and improve the level of service that they're offering. Lastly, you could automate the existing work order system you have to be completely paperless and automate how, particularly if you went to the zones, where that work was assigned. There are examples in several Tennessee school districts using School Dude where they are to the point where a building engineer can put into place, this is the issue, and that work order go automatically to the appropriate maintenance person, shows up in their queue, and they're alerted instantly. And then they based off the work priority, they show up and do the work. There's no paper transfer. There's no waiting to the next day to hand the work order to someone. And they're able to close the work out right when they complete it so that the teachers, the principals, they can see the progress of the work and they can see the status of their work real time versus wondering if it's being done or not. And then lastly, you have made investments in the School Dude PM Direct software. It's partially set up. I would recommend going ahead and setting it up fully. And if we created those building engineer roles, we could then use them to complete some of those PM tasks that aren't getting done now that need to be done. I threw a lot at you right there. Is there any questions about some of this work before I move on to custodial? Because I threw a lot at you in just a few minutes.
Well, if nobody else has anything, I'm going to rant for a minute, and it's not at you. I greatly appreciate what you've given. And the only reason I'm going to interrupt you because I'm going to forget this if I don't. But one, I want to say thanks to Mr. Breeden, because this report would have been very easy to not ever show us because it shows a lot of deficiencies. And deficiencies that probably not of any fault of anybody now. It's just we're trying to change the way things used to be, and I understand that fully. So know that my rant and my disgust comes not at you, it comes at the process. But I'm going to try to put what you said in a nutshell. The bottom line is that we as a county, and everybody would expect me to say what I'm about to say, but we as a county, we as a school board, have not put a very high priority on maintenance employees, is the bottom line, and just to be blunt about it. We want to pay as little as possible, and you get what you pay for. So what your suggestion would be that, one, that we have people in each individual school, and I saw as I read over earlier, that the suggestion about having somebody in zones and working in zones and having somebody at a particular school is they take pride in that. They
Ownership.
Right, they take ownership. They want Spring Hill High School, if that's where they are every day, they're going to work a little bit harder there. And so your suggestion would be is that rather than, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to make light of it, but rather than just having a custodian at a school, have somebody that is able and will do more than just custodial work. That there's things that, I forget you gave a title for it, a facility engineer.
Yeah, building engineer.
A building engineer, but that they would be able to do some things that rather than calling the maintenance department and us sending somebody 20 miles to change ceiling tiles, that they could do those type things. And then morph into having district-wide skilled people. And I know we've talked about, this has been brought up before, but probably a lot of our HVAC issues, it's, and again, nobody's here to print this, so because it's going to come out wrong, but we're jack of all trades and masters of none. And so you can't fault our maintenance guys for that because they're busting their tail to do the best they can do. But so it's not a shot at them, what I'm saying, but we just don't have that. You know, we want to pay an HVAC guy and say he's a HVAC technician. We want to pay him $14 an hour. And we think we're really doing something. Well, we're not. To get quality people, we got to come off our pocketbook a little bit. Now, we can either pay them now or we can pay later. And in the last, I can only speak for the last 3.5 years because that's how long I've sat here, but we've paid later because our nose has been bloodied in the last 3.5 years. Train's been licking their chops for the last 1.5 years because we thought it was better to push it to the side and forget about it, but now it's costing us a ton. And I told Train last month, I think, that every time I open their report on the second Tuesday of every month, I cringe because I don't know what in the heck is going to be in it. But that's our fault. It's nobody else's. It's not Mr. Breeden's fault. It's not our maintenance guy's fault. It's our fault because we haven't put an emphasis on that. And your report shows that not only are we not, I know money's not the answer to all things, but it's the answer to a lot of things. And to get good people, you have to pay.
It is a combination, though, of putting good systems in place, too. Because if you just throw money,
right,
you have to do both. And I will warn of that because some systems jump real quick to throwing a lot of money, but they won't invest the energy in building the systems. The systems take time to set up those positions, those building engineer positions. That's going to be new for Maury County. Having those positions report to operations versus principals, you would have to speak to principals and let them understand what's in it for them for that transition to occur. And the only thing I would warn is you have to do both. Sometimes money is easier than the hard work to design the systems and put the processes in place, if that makes sense.
Right.
So that's my only word of caution.
And that was why I complimented Mr. Breeden because I think that he fully understands. We went from having nothing to school dude, so we took a huge step. just in the last few months. And I know it's a learning process for you guys, and I'm sure this report has brought out some things. But when we think about what we've done as a system, I'm very proud that we created Mr. Breeden's position. But looking back on it now, we gave you a ton to do. We ask a whole lot out of you, and we ask a whole lot out of Mr. Hall, and there's only so much that can be done. There's only so many hours in the day, and ultimately it falls back on us that we haven't put a priority on maintaining our facilities. This kind of hits us square between the shoulders. But that's my rant for now. I'll have another one in a minute about custodial stuff. I already looked. But anybody else want to rant with me? Thank you for letting me interrupt you.
Okay, no problem. Now, custodial services, those are mainly subcontracted. I don't have any direct recommendations for you to do something with their processes, because your contractor should be held accountable for fixing processes if they need to be fixed. From a customer service perspective, though, it appears that there are some opportunities that need to be addressed. You can see there your overall cleanliness of classrooms. 31% of your staff were satisfied. So over 50% of your people aren't satisfied with what's being done for them. If you look at the cleanliness level of hallways and common areas, that was your highest satisfaction number. The scary thing about that number is that's where you guys walk when you visit. They're keeping those areas cleaner than they are where your teachers are working with students. That needs to be worked on. Now, there is a system put in place for principals to rate how, this is by school, by the way, but let me say this before I jump to the other. This is showing that, again, depending on the school, you have a highly diverse feedback of satisfaction level. Some schools are very happy with how they're being done, but you look down here at some of the other ones and you're at 14%, 17%. That's not a lot of people happy. That's a gap. But when we look at your principals' ratings, they're saying they're great. This could be that your principals don't understand how to rate cleanliness. They're instructional leaders. There are standards like APPA, and I've already walked Mr. Breeden through some of those standards and shown him where they're located so he can find them and understand them for rating cleanliness. And what you're going to see, I'm not sure if it's that they don't know how to rate it, or if they're not really taking the time to do it. But there's a disconnect between how your principals feel the buildings are being cleaned and how the other people in the school feel buildings are being cleaned. So that should be addressed. The other thing is we probably should look at addressing with your contractor how you guys are going to mutually agree to inspect buildings so that everyone's on the same, that they're giving you the level that you want. When we look at just staffing, let me get there. Your staffing is appropriate. 84, the national means 87. Best in class is 44. Those systems have a lot of automation and a lot of tools to be able to reduce. They're also doing some special things like tiger teams at night, third shift cleaning teams, and unique things like that. 84 is a good number, and that includes your 12 Maury County paid custodians and the 72 contracted positions. When we look at how you compare to other districts in Tennessee, you'll see that your custodial workload is right in line. It's what it should be. Your supply costs are higher, although overall your labor costs are in line. Your supply costs, the way that's broken down, that could be in how they break out their cost. So when I looked at it overall, though, the overall cost, you guys are right where you should be on your cost piece. So you're not paying for more than you should. They're staffed adequately, but I'm not sure you're getting the cleanliness levels that you want. And part of the thing may be they're not getting the feedback from the principals, or there may not be a good feedback mechanism to the contractor explaining where there is deficiency so they can be fixed. Does that make sense? Since there's a disparity between what we're looking at and what our teachers feel is being done. Any questions about custodial, what I looked at there? And again, it's a contracted service, so I didn't really want to get into I couldn't get into their procedures and processes. I don't know how they clean because of that question.
Thank you. First off, I want to say I appreciate you doing this. It falls in line with what Mr. Breeding is trying to do, is get a hand on our facilities, maintenance and cleanliness, and everything. So I certainly appreciate your works here. One of the things you brought up was teacher dissatisfaction. They feel like that a large part of our teachers don't feel like their classes are clean. But I also feel like some of that is self-created. I've gone in some of our classrooms, and our teachers allow their classrooms to look like pigsties. You know, some of them don't require the students to pick up behind themselves and all. So I think we've created some of it ourselves. I think teachers and students need to pick up self, and they're not going to do that unless they feel a certain sense of pride in the facility. So you know, I think we've got some of those. I do agree that I think oftentimes our administrative staff is sort of overloaded. I think our principals have got so many other items on that they're not able to make tours of the facility and address whether things are clean or not. And so this facility engineer, I sort of agree. I think we need people capable of doing more than just pushing a broom and then swinging a mop a little bit, you know. There's no reason they can't do some of the basic maintenance items of replacing ceiling tiles or changing out some light bulbs and some ballast if need be, or addressing a basic sink faucet leak or whatever. I think we need a little higher quality person there, and then sort of that would solve sending, like say, we do have some schools that are in some rural areas, or there is quite a bit of distance to get to them from our central office maintenance location. So maybe if we could reorganize some of that into zones, might be a little more effective. And I think Mr. Breeding's looking at some of that. I agree with Mr. Lindsay. We do need to look at the quality of our technicians and hire a better technician capable of doing more, and with that comes having to pay him more. You know, we're going to get what we pay for, and I think we're seeing what not being willing to pay is costing us, and we're seeing that now. So I agree with your statements in whole.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you guys for letting me present this to you tonight, and I enjoy working with you guys too. I'm excited about all the good things I do see coming out of Maury County right now. A lot of good changes. I know this is kind of negative, and I hate being the guy showing a bunch of negative stuff to you, but there are good things here too that I've seen, and I see a lot of change and transformation occurring. So I would like to leave on that positive note.
Thanks. And this is rant number 2. And this is not at you. You can sit down. But you know, and this is really nobody in this room, but I just hope the message gets back where it needs to. But a few months ago, we, and I don't remember the exact time, but we had to renew GCA's contract. And it is mind-boggling to me, and we saw the data tonight, how principals can give scores of 95+% on their satisfaction. And then when we ask people that's in the classroom, there was a school that had 14% satisfaction. That if I don't watch, I'm gonna say something that I don't need to. But I don't get it. It does not make sense to me. It will never make sense to me. And I agree with what Mr. Dudley said. I know our principals have a lot on us, on them, and but that's their job, and they get paid good money to do that. And and it costs taxpayers money down the road when they don't do that. And I just do not understand how principals can be so happy with our custodial services, but then the people that use those facilities every day, that work in those facilities, not even half of them are happy with it. And we just, and I'm throwing numbers out. GCA costs us a couple $1 million a year. We just approved a $2 or $3 million contract that half the people aren't happy with. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, and I understand that, but it just blows my mind that we do that, and we make decisions off of feedback we get, and the feedback is skewed for some reason, and the only reason that I can come up with is that somebody's not doing their job, and I think it's time that for a bunch of reasons, and this being one of them, but we got to take the maintenance and upkeep of our schools out of the hands of principals. And that's, I'm just being blunt, and but that's the way I feel. That I understand they got a lot on their plate, and there's probably other things they need to be worried about. But when we look at how specialized some of the things that Train is putting in, that it's not in their scope of ability to do, and that's not. Again, I'm not downing anybody, but that's just not what they do. If you put me in a principal's office, I would not be very good at that either. It would just not be what I do. So I think it's time that we've got to look at a way that we allow principals to take care of curriculum in the classroom and take care of administrating their people, and that we get rid of we take that maintenance off of them, because obviously it's not being taken care of. And again, Mr. Breeden, you have to take the brunt of this, and none of this is directed at you. I understand that you're trying to make changes, and I appreciate that greatly, but it just, I just don't understand if things aren't good, if services aren't being performed up to the standard that they should be, why we didn't receive that feedback, why principals didn't tell us that, so that maybe we could have went a different direction if that's what we needed to do. And I know I'm ranting, but it's just really, really frustrating to me that when somebody, to be blunt, when somebody doesn't do their job.
Can I rant?
Sure.
Well, as far as the maintenance goes, for a couple of years, and it's not a way of excuse, it's just a way of acknowledgement, we didn't get any preventative maintenance money from the county. 2 years I know for sure, and I think it maybe was 3. And this isn't directed at Mr. Breeden either. Since he's come on, things have started moving forward, thank goodness. And I think as far as the principal's report goes, I think they just look at it, and it's not knocking your company or anything, sir. They just look at it, oh my goodness, another report, and just punch buttons or whatever they did to do their survey. But what the teachers see and what the customers see and what the children see is the most important part. The principals or who's ever in charge should be doing their job. And I, for one, I was not in favor of farming out the custodial services. I think people from Murray County, and I don't know where the workers are from here, if they're from Murray County or not, but people from Murray County that are assigned to a specific school, that's the way to go. And I think you get a cleaner building and a better job from people that care. And as far as I think some of these custodial people took a cut in pay, the ones that did get hired. And if you're working at a place for $10 an hour, and now you're going to do the same work for $8 an hour, unless you're an exceptional person, you're not going to do the same job. And to me, it's that simple. I think we need somebody in charge, like you suggested, in every school. And at night, when these people are doing their cleanup, there's no supervision that I'm aware of. So, nobody watching over your shoulder, we don't do as much.
Thank you. I do agree with Ms. Lindsay. It's sort of mind-boggling to see the difference between the satisfaction level of the teachers and the administration, the reports that they've sent in. Ms. Breeding, do our teachers actually fill out a request if they feel like their classroom has not been properly cleaned and all, and then passing along to the school administrator, or the teachers completely left out of the scenario, or can you explain what the deal is there?
Process that's in place now is one that was implemented when the contractor GCA came on board. Is there is a logbook in the school office where the teachers go and log the problems, and they're to be addressed by both the account manager for GCA and the custodians. Custodians are supposed to come and check that logbook. As you might imagine, we have already met with GCA and showed them this report and asked them to bring us a plan for how this was going to improve, which we feel like we owe to you. And we talked about several different options. We're actually scheduling a meeting with them right away for them to come back to us. But one of the things that was mentioned was turning that report into an online process where the teacher could actually log into a system and log those that we could then see as well. We'd all have access to be able to see those in real time. One of the things that we've been doing, when I came on board, we were actually getting this report card report once a quarter. They would compile it each quarter and go over it with us. We have asked to at least see these reports monthly, and we're starting to do that and work through those. But we've asked to make this a more automated system to do that. But currently now, long answer to a short question, Mr. Dudley, but they use a logbook in the school office.
Okay. Well, I can understand teachers having some issues, but if they are not going to that logbook and actually logging their complaint or their issue, and then the administrator is not being truthful as to the number of issues that there are in their facility, we've got to get everybody to do their job. And so if the teacher feels like their classroom is not properly cleaned, they need to put it in the logbook. The administrator needs to work with GCA and see that it is corrected, but they don't also need to be truthful with us and not hide that hey, on a large part of the time, GCA is not properly cleaning this building. So we've got to just keep working on these systems, but I do have concerns, as Mr. Lindsay does, the difference between the two reports. I want our facilities to be great and clean, and I've been told by parents that that's one of the biggest differences between our system and Western County schools is the maintenance and the cleanliness of the schools. And that it has just as much effect as the curriculum. And so I think we're making great strides. We just got to keep working at it.
Would that be a good segue for my next
Well, I
report?
just want to add one thing, and I'll be quick. I'm not going to rant again, but, and GCA was hired mainly as a cost-saving measures, and it appears that we're getting what we paid for, is all I'll say. And I know I'm being hard on GCA, but it kind of is what it is according to these reports. So I'll shut up. Mr. Breeden.
About 6 months ago, we started working on a plan for you of how we were going to do this differently. We've been through several discussions on this. At the time, I didn't know about Lean Frog, and it was very timely that Mr. Hedrick was available to make this observation, and so I've been intentionally waiting on his results, and it helped us form some of what we were doing. Some of the things he mentioned we were already working on, some of the things it helped us form, which I want to share with you. As a response to this and some other things. The thing I want to say first is, though, that, you know, and I can't remember who alluded to this, maybe this was Mr. Lindsay, but I think back, I've been around long enough that when I went to school, and Mr. Lindsay, you and Ms. Powers can't relate to this, I know, but when I went to elementary school, my elementary school had a radiator along the wall that you warmed the room and windows that you raised when you wanted to be cool. It had a floor that was wood that had been oiled so many times it was almost black. Mr. Dudley and Mr. Pennings probably can remember that. And nobody expected anything more. But that's not the world we live in today. And it is a more complicated system. And sometimes we haven't done all the things we need to do to acknowledge that we're taking care of something different than we were taking care of 50 years ago when I was in elementary school. I hate to say that, but 50 years ago. This year I'll celebrate my 40th year high school reunion, so it's that long ago. But because of that, we do need to look at what we do and make a better plan. And we've tried to do that. We've been doing a lot of things over the last several months, which I want to speak to. And I think it's not just a matter of always firing and hiring new people or spending more money. It is looking at the processes. I'm glad you mentioned Williamson County, Mr. Dudley, because we've went and visited with several other school districts, and I'm going to talk about Williamson County. We visited with them, and they talk about some things they do that we don't tonight, because I know that we're very often compared to them. We share a common border, and when you go to Spring Hill, I go to church in Spring Hill, and all those people think they live in Williamson County, even though some of them live in Murray County. But so all of those things have contributed to this, but what I want to do is take just a few minutes. We don't have everything for you tonight, and the reason I want to share with you this now, because this is an impact of what we're going to present to you budget-wise. I mean, we're going to have to change the way we budget. You saw some of those things tonight, and we've not finished that process with our staff, and so we don't have all that information for you. But the first thing I want to talk about is just kind of what led us to this. The facility condition assessment you're going to see, we've already talked about. You saw the report from Mr. Hedrick. But also, I want to call you, and he mentioned APPA. APPA is an organization that's pretty much the nationally recognized organization for taking care of schools. They're very prominent in the university and college area, but also in the K-12 area. But they're the ones that keep all the statistics on how to take care of schools. And what they do is they develop 5 levels of expectation. I can keep up with it, turning my paper, that you see there on your screen. Every way from APPA Level 5, Crisis Management, to APPA 1, Show Place Facility. And obviously, you just look at that and say, well, we want ours to all be show place facilities, but there's a cost to that. And quite frankly, most K-12 schools are not in the APPA 1 category. Most of them fall in the 2 to 3 if I had to rank us, we're probably somewhere between 3 and 4 right now. I don't think we're 5. I think, we're probably 4 in most levels, some places 3. So what we've got to do is we've got to start making a plan to move up that scale. We won't jump from 4 to 1. So we've got to look at ways that, and that's what I want to talk to you about tonight, is how is we would, develop a plan to move up this scale and what it would take to do that. A lot of things have been alluded to about that already. What we did is we looked at developing a strategic facilities plan. Actually, part of my process of getting ready for this is I'm currently going to a study course with the International Facility Management Association to be certified as a facility management professional, and this comes from their leadership and strategy course. And it talks about building on the strategic plan of the organization and carrying that on down to a strategic plan for the facilities. And you all have invested a lot of time in developing a strategic plan for the organization. Of course, developed a vision statement, educating every child for life. You catch up there. I'm turning the pages here and not flipping my thing, so I'll try to catch up. Your vision statement, educating every child for life, a district mission statement, we will provide educational instruction tools and environment for every child to exceed in life as lifelong learners, independent thinkers, fearless innovators, and exemplary citizens. What we will do is develop a facilities mission statement that says we will provide the educational environment for every child to succeed in life by assuring the places in which all school activities take place are well-maintained, clean, comfortable, and safe. And I think most everybody would agree that's a pretty good statement for our facilities. That's probably the 4 things we're trying to accomplish, is that they're well-maintained, they're clean, they're comfortable, and that they're safe. And so we want to address all of those as we make a plan forward. The thing, though, in order to do that, is we've got to realign some of the way we do things. And I've boiled it down to 3 things that I think we need to address. The first of those is we've got to address culture in our district. We've got to address the way we've been doing things. Just what you referred to, Mr. Lindsay. We've got to change our approach, because our approach for a long time has been to be reactive, and we've got to start being proactive in the way we take care of our facilities. Instead of responding to a problem, we've got to prevent the problem on the front end. We've worked with little or no training for our staff. We have no money in our budget for training for our maintenance staff right now. $0. Now, we've started trying to do some things. We've actually started a little breakfast, lunch, and learn with our maintenance staff once a month, and we're getting vendors to come in and do some training. But it's very general. We've got to do some more specific things, and we're going to have to invest time and money in that. We've got to have time with our maintenance staff where they regularly, every month, spend some time in training so that we have a skilled workforce. Of course, we also need to hire more trained people. Most of our people we hired as a general labor, and they've learned on the job how to take care of everything that they learn. We've also got to change the assigned responsibility, what you all have already talked about, and Mr. Hedrick pointed out. We've got to move the responsibility for the buildings from the administration of the school to the district level, the maintenance and operations staff. We've got to, instead of just responding to their request for repair, we've got to initiate and know about the request for repair. Which means we're going to have to look at our structure. We're going to have to examine the way we've been managing maintenance. We're going to have to move more from, right now, our management's been more of a foreman of a team to more of a professional manager of our maintenance program. We're going to have to, you've already heard Mr. Hedrick talk about, we've got to look at zone teams. We've already been putting together a plan. I want to share it to you when we share the budget, but basically 3 zone teams. Our county breaks up perfect for 3 zone teams. You have the northern team, which would take care of the Spring Hill schools in Santa Fe. You have the southern team, which would take care of the Culleoka schools in Hampshire. And then you have the central team, which would take care of what's in the middle. That would be the bigger one. We visited with the other school districts we visited with. Several of them have zone teams. Williamson County has zone teams. Everybody doesn't work out of one central maintenance department. They have zone teams. We visited with Cheatham County. They have zone teams that do that. You have the guys who go to work at when the Spring Hill team, they'd have a maintenance place in Spring Hill. They all report, get in their trucks, go out to the schools. They just take care of that. So you get more ownership of those schools by having those zone teams. And so, you're looking at having those zone teams, but along with those zone teams, we've got to look at what we assign people to do. Because most of the other school districts we looked at that have zone teams also have some specialized areas that they have that take care of specialized kind of work, things that we don't have. Most of the districts have a dedicated locksmith on their staff. One of the things you're going to see when you get the facilities assessment is we have a lot of issues, unsafe conditions with bad door hardware on our schools. We haven't taken care of them. When we do, we bring it, we use all kinds of combinations. We got key issues galore because we have keys floating around. We don't have a key policy in our district. So we give out keys to anybody who asks. And then we have principals calling us saying, I got to rekey all my doors because I'm getting calls from the alarm company because people are coming here and setting the alarm off all the time because I have no control over the keys. So those are things we can do. Williamson County, again, and I'll talk about Williamson County some. They're twice the size of us. They have twice as many schools. So when I looked at what they've got, they have 2 dedicated locksmiths on their staff. We probably need 1. They have another opportunity that we probably need is they have dedicated people to take care of their playgrounds. They have 2 dedicated people who just take care of playgrounds, do the safety and inspection for their playgrounds, put the mulch on their playgrounds, do all those kind of things. We probably need a dedicated playground person on our maintenance staff to take care of those things. One of the things that you noticed in the number of requests, the second highest area for requests for us was in plumbing. We only have 2 plumbers on our entire maintenance staff. We need more plumbers. So we got to look at some of those kind of things. And then we've talked about the HVAC issues. Other districts we talked about had some highly skilled HVAC people. We need immediately, if we can, at least by the next school year, we need to have a highly trained HVAC, at least 1 lead person to lead our HVAC guys who can go out and help them know how to take care, train, and do those kind of things. And we've got to do some of that. Another thing that you talk about, and I'll use Mr. Hall's position for example. When I came, this was what was in place. His position, 1 person, is responsible for all new construction and renovations. He's responsible for playground safety. That was a part of that job. He is our asbestos expert, takes care of all, and we're required by the state to file asbestos reports on all of our schools. He is the one who oversees all of our contracted services, which we have not just GCA. We contract out lawn mowing. We contract out pest control. We have added contracting out filter maintenance, and we contract out our water loop maintenance. So all of those things he watches over. He's also our energy manager as we're entering into this process with Train. He's the only one who's looking at the energy management. He's working with the schedule that we're setting up for our it's more than 1 person can do. It's just more than 1 person can do. And so what I do is try to take part of that responsibility too. That's why I'm so involved in these things, is trying to take on some of that. But I think you all realize facilities is not my own responsibility. I have buses and technology and food service and school nurses, and I'm leaving things out. I got it all on a chart. I'll show you some because of time that I work with as well. So it's not just, so there's a lot of things that we're kind of spread thin on. So looking at how some of the others do, we've got to look at assignments, how we do assignments. And then we've already talked about work location, of getting that right. And then the other thing we've got to look at is we've got to look at our process. Again, Mr. Hedrick referred to that. And I would break that down into 5 different areas where we would look at our process, from a customer perspective, from a financial perspective, from purely a process perspective, from a safety perspective, and from an innovation and learning perspective, is what we would do. So let's go through those, and I'm sorry, I'll try to make this brief, because I've been thinking about this for 6 months, so y'all are getting it tonight, and I apologize. So if I spend too much time on this, let me go back to culture. I apologize. But being proactive versus reactive, one of the things that we've come across that we want to do is we want to develop standards for new construction, renovation, and repair. Because what we've done in the past is we don't drive that. We've let the architects and the contractors drive that. And no, Jamie's gone. I was about to say they're both here tonight. Dwayne's still here. And this is not reflection on them, but like the way we designed Central High School, it had to be done pretty fast, Dwayne. And so we didn't get a lot of input. So we're getting into it and finding that there are things that we'd like to do different now. Hewlett, Spencer, and Bell have been good to work with us. Right now we're going to a complete redoing all of the way we lock the doors and a key system because we want to get a standardized system for the whole district. There's other things that we've talked about standardizing on equipment. So when we start maintaining buildings down the road, we don't have all these different kinds of switch gears. One of the things that Dave's talked about in our electrical, that's his area of expertise. And you're looking at whether we have Cutler Hammer in this school, and Squared. Yeah, and we got all these different buckets of stuff where we could standardize maybe. Now again, we can't get out of a competitive environment when we bid that, but there's a lot of things we could do to make it easier to maintain, make us more efficient to maintain. We don't keep any parts on hands. We need to develop a process where we can standardize and we keep parts on hands instead of our guys going to the parts store every time they need a part, because that's lost time when they're sitting at that parts counter waiting on parts. And there's some things, and we found other school districts, they have a parts warehouse and a person on their staff who keeps up with that parts warehouse. That's all they do. They have a parts person, just like you would expect, in a district our size. Obviously, we've talked about we need to be a district that focuses on doing preventative maintenance, corrective maintenance, and scheduled replacement versus crisis response, patch and plug, and fix on failure, which is kind of the way we operate now. We need for our maintenance department to understand that it's their job to have the initiative to fix things, not wait till somebody tells them that it's broken to fix it, which in their defense, that's the system we have. They sit there and wait till somebody from the school calls and says this isn't working. And if nobody from the school complains, they feel like everything's okay, because that's the system we have. So we got to change the system. We need to have a skilled workforce, certified license, ongoing training, versus unskilled on-the-job training with a little or no ongoing responsibility. And we've got to have the maintenance and operations staff versus the skilled school administrators on assigned responsibility, which we've already talked about. In our structure, we need our management to be proactive, customer-focused, delegated authority, high accountability. That's what we need for our management staff. We need zone teams, building engineers, highly trained skilled tradesmen, and designated staff for specialty functions. We need, and again, I took this straight out of Mr. Hedrick's presentation, first line of defense building engineers with decentralized zone teams and centralized specialty functions, which I mentioned before. In the process, what we have done is we have developed 15 objectives, 3 objectives for each one of these, where we could set an action plan for how we would carry this out. And we are developing a scorecard, a balanced scorecard with KPI, key performance indicator targets, which are based on these identified service levels. So if you hit this target, you've achieved this APPA service level. If you hit this target, you've achieved this APPA service level. So that's what we would do. So we set out targets. So our people have a clear, defined objective of what we're trying to accomplish. Let me walk through those real quickly with you, and I'll be through, because I know this is getting long, and I appreciate everybody's patience. But from the customer perspective, customer perspective, are you keeping me straight, Jerry? Thank you, because I'm not doing a good job of turning the page. Is we need to become more aware and responsive to service needs. Obviously, the survey showed that. We've got to become more aware. We've got to measure corrective maintenance response times. We got to measure how long from the time you submit a work order does it get finished. That's a pretty simple measurement, but we got to put a process in place to do that. We've got to conduct customer expectations reviews. The survey that we just did, we need to be doing that kind of survey regularly, maybe once a year. We need to be doing more specific surveys in between, but we need to be doing regular customer service surveys. And we need to have our management walking through the buildings. We need to get looking for what needs to be fixed, not waiting for somebody to tell them that it needs to be fixed. I will mention the custodial issue. Williamson County, go back to them. They have 2 full-time, what they call contract administrators, who just manage their contracted services. So they have twice as many schools, and they've got one person, they're just dedicated to take care of GCA, grass mowing, they contract out GCA, contractors, GCA's half of theirs, they divide theirs in 2, they're twice the size of us. They contract out grass mowing, a couple other services similar to what we do, they contract out. They have somebody, that's their full-time job. If we had somebody, it was their full-time job to manage this and walk through these schools and look at this, they could keep this on track. But when we're trying to do that with all the other things, pretty much the system we put in place was depend on the principals to do that. That's the system we have. That's the way it was set up. And you can see the problems with that. And then again, it's not I think a great explanation. It's really not the principals. Their job's loaded being educators. And there's a far cry from being an educator to being, and quite frankly, if you go back to that survey, I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but at the top of that survey on both of them was Culleoka Unit School. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We spent a lot of money with Train at Culleoka. But also Ken Harris, who's the assistant principal, he's the best person at taking care of his building we got. Ken's been doing that for a long time, and he does that very, very well. And so that makes a difference because you got somebody there who's devoted and dedicated to that. We just don't have that in all the schools. And I don't know that, and I don't know how, and I called him Kim Mr. Harris. I don't know how Mr. Harris is as the other jobs that he does as an assistant principal, but he's real good taking care of his building. And so that shows up in the survey. He wears us out, doesn't he? He'll wear you out because he calls you every day about something, but he does a good job of taking care of his building. I got myself totally lost. So anyway, that's in the customer perspective. Second objective, clarify responsibilities and establish a high-level accountability. That's what you do when you do the work zone. They got a smaller group. Now it's so spread out, nobody feels responsibility for anything. But it's going to be pretty easy. If you're the Mount Pleasant work zone crew, if there's something wrong at one of the Mount Pleasant schools, that's who you go talk to. That's who you deal with on that. We're going to measure the percent of rework, of callbacks. We don't do that now. How many times do they submit the work order for the same thing over and over and over again? Because we go out and patch it, we don't fix it, which happens a lot. We patch it, we get it running, but we don't fix it. We get it where it will run, but it's not fixed. We measure the days to finalize work orders. How long did it take from the time it was given to the maintenance person till they turned it back in finished? Third objective, implement a customer satisfaction and measurement feedback system. Generate surveys for completed work orders. Every time that work order is completed, send a survey to whoever sent it in. Ask them to complete that. You won't get them all back, but it'll give you a good, and we can make that automated through the system. Measure the percent of work orders with customer feedback. Look at how many of those we get back and see how that works. The next area, are you ahead of me? Is the financial perspective. And this was really the best catch-all I could think of for this area. But that is to found a proactive management approach. It will help us financially if we're proactive versus reactive. And we can do that by having the staff identify needs versus waiting until the school identifies needs. Complete the work by skilled trade as needed. We can do that in-house. For a while, we may have to supplement a lot of that from outside contractors till we get up to speed on some things, and we're already doing that a lot with Train. Implement a full-scale preventative maintenance program. That's been recommended as well, and we're moving in that direction. Second objective is to benchmark our performance. Use those key performance indicators. Look at what other school districts do. Set benchmarks. Here's where you want to be. Establish a facility condition index. You're going to get that next week as a part of the assessment, which the facility condition index is just, you got this much repairs versus this is what it costs to build a whole new building. That's just divide the total amount of deferred maintenance or about maintenance needs by the cost. And what you're going to find, we got a couple of situations we're probably better off just building a new building.